Have you ever noticed how much energy we spend trying to control life? From the moment we wake up, the mind begins making plans, calculating risks, worrying about what might go wrong. We hold on tightly to our ideas of how things should unfold, believing that if we just push harder, think faster, or worry enough, somehow the world will bend to our will. And yet, more often than not, what happens? We end up exhausted, frustrated, and still uncertain about the future. It feels like swimming against a current that never slows down. Deep down, many of us carry this quiet question: is there another way to live? Is there a way to move with life rather than fight it? This is where the ancient wisdom of surrender enters. And today we are beginning to see that what mystics have always taught, quantum physics is now beginning to prove. Surrender does not mean giving up. It does not mean weakness. True surrender is the release of the illusion of control, the act of aligning with the flow of the universe, and stepping into a reality where possibilities expand rather than contract. It is in this space that real transformation occurs, not through force but through allowing. Imagine standing in front of a river. On one side is the person you've always been, the one who overthinks, who doubts, who tries to manage every outcome. This is the old self, rooted in fear, addicted to certainty. On the other side is the version of you that trusts, that allows life to unfold, that moves with a quiet sense of power and peace. This is the new self, born through surrender. The river between them is what we are here to cross, and the bridge is understanding how the science of the universe supports this shift. Now let's pause for a moment and consider what we already know about reality. For centuries, science told us that the world was fixed, solid, predictable. We thought atoms were little billiard balls, that cause and effect ruled absolutely, and that everything was already determined. But as physicists began peering deeper into the quantum world, something extraordinary was revealed. Reality itself is not fixed at all. At the most fundamental level, particles exist in states of possibility, waves of potential that collapse only when observed. Reality is not a rigid structure. It is alive, fluid, responsive. Doesn't that sound a lot like the language of surrender? When you try to control life, it is as if you are forcing the wave to collapse into only one outcome, one narrow possibility. But when you surrender, you open yourself to the infinite, to the countless other versions of reality that are already waiting for you. This is not just philosophy. It is physics meeting mysticism, science meeting spirituality, and here lies the invitation to see surrender, not as a spiritual cliché but as a quantum alignment with the true nature of the universe. But I know what you might be thinking. If surrender is so powerful, why is it so difficult? Why do we cling so desperately to control? The truth is, our old selves have been trained to equate control with safety. From childhood, we're taught that to succeed, we must strive, compete, and hold on tightly. Our nervous systems have learned to equate letting go with danger. Yet ironically, the more we cling, the more stuck we become, trapped in the same cycles of anxiety, fear, and repetition. We stay locked in the same timeline, never shifting into the greater possibilities of who we are meant to be. The science of surrender begins by exposing this illusion. Control is not what keeps us safe. Alignment is, and alignment comes only when we stop resisting, when we release the need to dictate every outcome, and when we trust the intelligence of the universe that is far greater than our own limited minds. The very field of quantum physics suggests that the universe is not random chaos, but an interconnected web, a field of infinite potential, responding to consciousness itself. When you release resistance, you are not stepping into emptiness, you are stepping into this field. This is why surrender feels both terrifying and liberating at the same time. The ego fears losing its grip, but the soul recognizes the truth, that by letting go we finally gain access to who we really are. We cross the river, we move from the old self to the new. We stop collapsing our reality into the same old patterns and open the door to miracles. So as we begin this journey together, I want you to imagine yourself as both scientist and seeker. Scientist, because we will explore the principles of quantum mechanics in language that you can feel in your bones. Seeker, because we will also explore the inner path, the lived experience of surrender that unlocks transformation. You are here because some part of you is ready to move beyond struggle, beyond endless control and into flow. You are here because something in you already knows there is more available to you, more than the narrow life you've been conditioned to accept. And so, let us begin. Let us explore what it means to surrender, not as an abstract idea, but as a lived reality. Let us step into the science of surrender and discover how the deepest truths of quantum physics and the wisdom of the ages converge in one powerful invitation to let go, to trust, and to awaken to the infinite possibilities that already exist within you. Think about how much of your life has been shaped by the need to control, from the smallest details, like organizing your desk, planning your day, or worrying about what people think of you, to the big things, such as career, money, relationships, even health. Control is the invisible thread running through almost every choice we make. And yet, how often has this control actually given you peace? For most of us, control brings temporary comfort at best, followed by more anxiety, more tension, and more fear when things inevitably don't go as planned. Why is this? Why do we resist surrender so much, even when we sense that letting go might be the very thing we need? The answer lies in the illusion of control itself. We believe that if we can just hold life tightly enough, if we can anticipate every outcome, we will be safe. But control is only a story the ego tells us. It is a story of survival, written by the part of the brain that evolved to protect us from danger. And while it may have kept our ancestors alive, today it often keeps us trapped in cycles of limitation. Picture this, the old self standing at the edge of possibility, terrified to step forward. This old self clings to routines, to identities, to outcomes that feel familiar, even when those outcomes are painful. Why? Because the unknown is scarier than repeating the same suffering. The old self is rooted in fear. It whispers, "Don't let go. If you surrender, you'll lose everything. You'll be vulnerable. You'll fail." And so many of us stay locked in this prison of control, living lives smaller than what we are capable of. But here's the contrast. The new self knows that surrender is not loss, it is freedom. The new self trusts that the universe is alive, intelligent, and responsive. It understands that by loosening the grip, by allowing life to unfold, new pathways open, doors that were invisible before suddenly appear. Miracles, synchronicities, opportunities, they begin to line up. The new self doesn't need to force life into a narrow shape because it understands that infinite shapes are possible. Let's look at why this is so hard. The human brain is wired to seek certainty. When something is unknown, the mind fills it with fear. This is why we overthink before a job interview, why we replay conversations in our head, why we try to control how others see us. The mind says, if I can control this, I'll be safe. But safety in this sense is an illusion. Life is unpredictable. No amount of control can stop the unexpected from happening. And in truth, it is often the unexpected moments that bring us the greatest growth. Take relationships, for example. How many people cling to relationships that no longer serve them out of fear of being alone? They control, they manipulate, they suppress their own truth, just to keep the familiar alive. But what happens? Both partners suffer. The old self chooses control and ends up stuck. The surrendered self chooses honesty, trust, and flow, and though it may face uncertainty, it also opens the door to deeper love, authentic connection, and healing. Or think about career and money. How many of us chase jobs, promotions, or projects not because they light us up, but because they feel safe? We control our path by following what society tells us is secure. And yet, how many times have you heard stories of people who finally surrendered, who left behind what didn't serve them, and in that surrender discovered opportunities they never could have planned? The old self fears lack, so it clings. The new self trusts abundance, so it flows. This contrast between fear and trust, control and surrender, is the heart of transformation. The illusion of control is what keeps us locked in the old reality. We believe we are steering the ship, but in truth we are only exhausting ourselves trying to fight the waves. Surrender is the moment we realize the ocean itself is carrying us. And when we align with that current, we move farther, faster, and more gracefully than we ever could on our own. But let's be honest, surrender doesn't feel natural at first. It feels like free falling. It feels like losing ground. This is because the ego measures safety by certainty. When you step into surrender, you step into uncertainty, and the ego panics. That is why most people resist. That is why they cling to control even as it makes them miserable. They mistake certainty for safety, not realizing that true safety is found in alignment, in flow, in trust. Consider the simple act of breathing. You cannot control every breath you take. Yes, you can hold your breath for a while, or speed it up or slow it down. But eventually the body takes over. Breath flows naturally. Life flows naturally. What would happen if we trusted life the same way we trust the breath? What if we allowed ourselves to be carried, to release the desperate need to manage every detail, and to discover what unfolds? This is not to say that control has no place. We need structure, discipline, and action in our lives, but the illusion is that control alone creates outcomes. In truth, control without surrender leads to burnout. Action without flow leads to struggle. The sweet spot is when effort meets alignment, when action arises from trust rather than fear. That is when creation becomes effortless. That is when manifestation becomes real. And so we come back to the question, why do we resist surrender? Because we've been taught to. Because the world tells us to compete, to grasp, to hustle, to prove our worth. Because we are afraid of the unknown. But here is the deeper truth. The unknown is not empty. It is full. It is alive with potential. Quantum physics already shows us this. The universe is not a machine. It is a field of infinite possibilities. When we let go, we don't fall into chaos. We fall into possibility. So as you sit with this, I want you to notice the places in your life where control is exhausting you. Notice the tension in your body when you try to plan every detail, when you replay every mistake, when you cling to what no longer serves you. Notice how heavy it feels. Then imagine the opposite. What would it feel like to let go? To trust, to allow life to carry you into a reality you can't yet see. That is the beginning of surrender. That is the moment the illusion of control begins to dissolve. And remember, surrender doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean giving up your dreams or abandoning your responsibilities. It means shifting from fear to flow. It means trusting that you are part of a larger intelligence that wants to work with you, not against you. It means realizing that you don't have to force reality, you only have to align with it. And once you do, life begins to unfold in ways more beautiful than you could have planned. When we hear the word surrender, the mind often interprets it as spiritual or emotional. But what if I told you that surrender is not only a mystical idea, it's also woven into the very fabric of science? Quantum physics, the most advanced study of reality at its smallest scales, has already revealed truths that mirror the ancient wisdom of letting go. And when we understand this, surrender stops feeling like a vague concept and becomes something that is scientifically natural. At the heart of quantum physics lies a radical discovery. Particles do not exist in fixed states until they are observed. Instead, they exist in a realm of probabilities, a field of infinite potential. This is known as superposition, the idea that an electron, for example, can exist in multiple states at once. Only when we measure or observe it does the wave of possibility collapse into a single outcome. Now pause and let that sink in. Reality itself is not fixed until there is interaction. Existence is not predetermined. It is potential waiting to be realized. Why does this matter for surrender? Because it reveals that life is not a straight line carved in stone. Life is a field of possibility. Every choice you make, every energy you hold, every state of consciousness you embody, is influencing which potential reality collapses into your experience. When you cling to control, when you are gripped by fear, doubt, or the desperate need to force an outcome, you are collapsing your reality into narrower and narrower paths. But when you surrender, you open the field again. You allow possibilities that your mind could never have planned. Surrender is the act of stepping into superposition, living in openness rather than contraction. The uncertainty principle, one of the most famous aspects of quantum physics, also teaches us something profound. It states that we cannot simultaneously know a particle's position and momentum with complete accuracy. The more certain we try to become about one, the less certain we are about the other. In other words, uncertainty is built into the very fabric of the universe. It is not a flaw, it is a feature. The old self, however, resists this truth. It craves certainty. It wants everything mapped out. The old self says, if I know the exact plan, I'll be safe. But the universe itself is whispering, uncertainty is natural. Uncertainty is the gateway to possibility. When you surrender, you are not failing. You are aligning with the way reality actually works. And then there is the observer effect, perhaps the most astonishing connection between science and surrender. In experiments, scientists have discovered that the act of observation changes the outcome. Light, for instance, behaves like a wave of potential until it is observed. Then it behaves like a particle, a fixed outcome. Consciousness itself seems to influence matter. This suggests that our awareness, our attention, is not passive, it is participatory. The universe is not a stage where you are merely an actor. You are also the co-creator of the play. Surrender, then, is not withdrawing from creation. It is consciously aligning your awareness so that reality can shape itself through you. Think of it this way. When you resist, when you are consumed by fear or control, your attention narrows. You keep observing the same old patterns, replaying the same old thoughts, and reality mirrors that back to you. You collapse into the same outcomes again and again. But when you surrender, when you let go of needing to control how or when something happens, you release that narrow focus. Your awareness expands, and suddenly the field of infinite potential has room to breathe. Synchronicities appear. The improbable becomes possible. Life reorganizes itself around your openness. This is not magic, it is the natural consequence of consciousness interacting with quantum possibility. Now let's pause and make this personal. Think about a time when you were gripping tightly to an outcome. Maybe you were desperate for a relationship to work, anxious for a job to come through, or fearful about money. You tried to control every detail, but instead of peace, you felt only stress. And then perhaps there came a moment when you gave up, not out of defeat, but because you simply couldn't carry it anymore. You released it, you surrendered, and then something shifted. Maybe an opportunity arrived out of nowhere. Maybe the relationship naturally resolved. Maybe money flowed from an unexpected source. That moment of letting go was not random. It was alignment with the deeper mechanics of the universe. Quantum physics shows us that reality is relational, not absolute. Particles respond to interaction. The universe is participatory, and surrender is how we step into that participation consciously. It is how we stop fighting the quantum field and start flowing with it. The mind thinks, if I surrender, I'll lose control. But in truth, surrender is how you access the greater intelligence of the field. It is how you align with outcomes far beyond what your limited mind could imagine. Another important aspect of quantum theory is entanglement. When two particles interact, they become linked in such a way that the state of one instantly influences the state of the other, even across great distances. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance. But what it reveals is that the universe is deeply interconnected. Nothing is isolated. Everything is part of a larger whole. For you, this means that surrender is not stepping into isolation. It is stepping into connection. When you let go, you tap into the web of entanglement, the intelligence that binds everything together. Suddenly, you are no longer struggling alone. You are part of a universal dance. So what does the science of surrender really mean? It means that life is not a rigid machine. It is a living field of possibility. It means that uncertainty is not a threat. It is a doorway. It means that your consciousness is not powerless. It is participatory. And it means that surrender is not weakness. It is alignment with the deepest truths of reality. When you understand this, surrender stops being an act of blind faith and becomes an act of deep knowing. You realize this is how the universe works. This is how creation happens. Now let's imagine this in practical terms. Picture yourself standing before multiple doors, each representing a different possible timeline of your life. Some are doors of limitation, born from fear and control. Others are doors of abundance, love, creativity, and flow. The more you resist, the more you try to force things, the more you keep collapsing into the same limited doors. But when you surrender, when you release the desperate need to control, suddenly more doors appear. The field opens. You can step through new possibilities that were always there, but hidden from your narrow view. This is surrender as quantum choice. And here is the most beautiful part. Surrender doesn't mean doing nothing. It means aligning your action with the field, rather than against it. It means listening for the intuitive pull, the inner nudge, the synchronicities that guide you. It means acting, but not forcing, moving, but not grasping, trusting, even when you don't yet see the full picture. This is the dance of surrender, and quantum physics gives us the language to understand why it works. So as we stand here between the wisdom of science and the wisdom of spirit, we can see that they are not opposites, they are reflections of each other. The mystic and the physicist are pointing to the same truth. Reality is alive, fluid, and responsive, and surrender is the bridge. When you let go, you don't fall into emptiness, you fall into the arms of the universe itself. You fall into potential, you fall into connection, and from there, life unfolds with a grace that no amount of control could ever manufacture. Now that we understand what surrender is, and how even quantum physics reflects its truth, the real question becomes, how do we practice it? How do we move from fear into flow, from control into alignment, not just as an idea but as a way of living every single day? Because knowledge without embodiment is just theory. Transformation happens when we begin to live this truth. The first step is awareness. You cannot surrender what you do not see. Begin by noticing where control is running your life. Perhaps it's in the way you micromanage your time, or the way you replay conversations in your mind, or the way you feel anxious when things don't go according to plan. Control often shows up as tension in the body, a tight jaw, clenched fists, shallow breath. When you feel this, pause, don't judge it, simply observe it. Awareness is the doorway. By naming where control lives in you, you've already taken the first step toward release. The second step is the breath. Breath is the most immediate way to shift from fear into flow. Think about it. When you're anxious or stressed, your breathing becomes shallow and fast. When you're at peace, your breath is slow, deep, and steady. By consciously shifting your breath, you send a signal to your entire system. It is safe to let go. Try this now. Inhale deeply, hold for a moment, and exhale fully. As you breathe out, imagine exhaling the weight of control, the need to know, the fear of the unknown. Each breath becomes an act of surrender, a reminder that life is already flowing through you without effort. The third step is trust in uncertainty. This is the hardest part for the old self, because the ego equates uncertainty with danger. But as we saw, uncertainty is the foundation of quantum possibility. To practice trust, begin small. Instead of planning every detail of your day, leave space for spontaneity. Instead of forcing conversations, allow silence and openness. Instead of demanding answers immediately, sit with the unknown. Trust is like a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. And as you strengthen it, you will begin to notice how life meets you halfway. What once felt like emptiness will begin to feel like possibility. The fourth step is gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to align with flow because it shifts your energy from lack to abundance. Control thrives on scarcity. It says, I must hold tightly or I will lose. Gratitude dissolves this illusion. It reminds you that you are already supported, already provided for, already surrounded by gifts. When you focus on what you already have, your nervous system relaxes, your energy expands, and you naturally move into alignment. Start with small things, the breath in your lungs, the warmth of sunlight, the smile of a stranger. Each moment of gratitude is a practice of surrender because it says, I trust that life is enough. I trust that I am enough. The fifth step is intuition. Surrender does not mean drifting aimlessly. It means listening more deeply to the guidance already within you. Intuition is the language of alignment. It often arrives as a whisper, a gentle pull, a sense of knowing without explanation. But most of us ignore it, choosing logic and control instead. To cultivate intuition, create space for stillness. Meditate, journal, or simply spend time in quiet. Ask your heart questions and listen for the answers that arise, not from fear but from deeper knowing. The more you honor intuition, the more you will realize that surrender is not about giving up, it's about tuning in. The sixth step is letting go of timelines. One of the biggest traps of control is the belief that things must happen at a certain time in a certain way. We tell ourselves, I must be successful by this age. I must be in a relationship by this year. I must achieve this goal now, or it's too late. These timelines are illusions. Life unfolds in its own rhythm, and when you surrender the when, you free yourself to receive in divine timing. Think about the last time something beautiful entered your life unexpectedly. A friend, an opportunity, a moment of joy. It didn't arrive on your schedule, it arrived on life's. Trust that timing. Release the clock. Flow knows when. The seventh step is action without force. Many people mistake surrender for passivity, but true surrender is active. It is about moving with life rather than against it. Take inspired action, steps that arise from intuition and alignment, not fear and desperation. For example, if you feel guided to apply for a new job, do it, but release the need to control the outcome. If you feel inspired to reach out to someone, reach out, but don't cling to how they must respond. Surrender means showing up fully, giving your best, and then letting go of the results. This is the dance of flow, effort and ease, discipline and trust, intention and release. The final step is surrendering daily. Surrender is not a one-time event. It is a practice, a way of being. Each morning you can begin by saying, I release control, I trust life, I align with flow. You may even imagine placing your worries into the hands of the universe, like setting down heavy bags you no longer need to carry. Throughout the day, when fear arises, return to the breath, to gratitude, to trust. At night, reflect, where did I cling today, and where did I let go? Celebrate the moments of surrender, however small. Over time, these moments accumulate, and you begin to notice that your life feels lighter, freer, more magical. Now imagine this contrast clearly. The old self wakes each day with tension, bracing for what might go wrong, clinging to plans and outcomes. It feels heavy, tired, trapped in the same loops. The new self wakes with openness, breathing deeply, trusting the unfolding, and moving with intuitive action. It feels alive, light, and deeply connected. Which self are you ready to choose? Which reality do you want to collapse into? The choice is yours, moment by moment. The path of surrender is not about perfection. You will still have moments of fear, moments of grasping, moments of trying to control. That is human. But each time you return to surrender, you shift your energy, you open the field, and you align with the greater flow of life. This is how transformation happens, not in one dramatic leap, but in small daily acts of letting go. And as you continue, you will discover that surrender is not something you do, it is something you become. As we arrive at the end of this journey, I want you to take a deep breath and notice how you feel right now. We have walked together through the illusions of control, the mysteries of quantum physics, and the daily practices of surrender. And perhaps in some small way, something inside you already feels lighter, softer, more open. That is the power of surrender. It begins the moment you choose it. Remember, surrender is not about giving up. It is not about abandoning your dreams or letting life pass you by. Surrender is about stepping into alignment with the deepest intelligence of the universe. It is about trusting that there is a current carrying you forward, even when you cannot see where it leads. It is about allowing life to unfold, knowing that uncertainty is not your enemy. It is the very space where miracles are born. Think of the contrast we have painted together. The old self clings, fights, resists. It collapses into the same patterns, the same fears, the same narrow timelines. The new self releases, trusts, allows. It opens to possibility, to flow, to a reality far greater than anything the mind could have planned. This is the choice that stands before you every single day, to live in fear or to live in trust, to hold tightly or to let go, to stay stuck in the old or to step into the new. And perhaps now you can see that surrender is not weakness, it is the ultimate strength. It is the courage to let go of the illusion of control and to align with the truth of how reality actually works. It is the wisdom to recognize that you are not separate from the universe, you are part of its infinite dance. Your consciousness is not powerless, it is participatory. And when you surrender, you allow that greater intelligence to move through you. So I invite you as we close, to reflect, where in your life are you still holding on too tightly? Where are you resisting the flow? Where are you collapsing into fear, rather than opening into possibility? Take those places, and imagine placing them gently into the hands of the universe. Release them. Trust that you are being carried. Trust that life knows what it is doing. And as you walk forward from here, remember that surrender is not a one-time act, but a practice. Each breath, each choice, each moment offers the opportunity to let go a little more. Over time, surrender becomes your natural state, and life itself becomes lighter, freer, more aligned. You begin to live in harmony with the quantum truth, that reality is fluid, alive, and always waiting to respond to your openness. So step forward now, not with fear, but with faith. Step forward not with control, but with trust. Step forward as the new self, the surrendered self, the self that knows, you are not here to fight against life, you are here to flow with it. And in that flow you will find freedom, peace, and the infinite possibilities of who you were always meant to be.